All right, day two of MLB 15, the show, the first 48 hours. We are back and live on your Google Hangouts. Hi, everybody. Rich Grisham here. Joining me again this evening is from Pasta Padre, Mr. Brian Weedeye. Brian, welcome back. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. It seems like we just talked about a lot of stuff to do with MLB The Show, but we went on for over an hour last night, and we barely scratched the surface of so much stuff that is really kind of necessary to have another show today, and then we'll see where our impressions go over the next couple days and the next week.
And also joining us this evening, who was not with us last night, because as T.J. Lowerman called him, he is now evidently the enemy of the show. I don't know where that came from. From Polygon, the great Owen Good. Owen, how are you, my friend?
Wait, hold on. How did I wait? What's the declaration of being an enemy?
You'll just have to take that up with TJ, who clearly has an axe to grind with you. I don't know what happened.
If TJ's rivalry with me on Twitter is interesting, and I advise all of you to follow us both if you want to. At that sports gamer at Owen Good.
Well done. Well, all right, as I said, this is the second of 2 straight days of Hangouts. MLB The Show came out for the PlayStation 4, the Vita, and the PlayStation 3 a couple of days ago. We are focusing almost completely on the PlayStation 4. So, Owen, as we did last night, we basically went through the panel and talked about, okay, once you got MLB The Show, what was your experience? So, I guess we'll start with you. First question is, did you go digital or did you go physical? And then number 2, once you busted it out, what'd you do? Like, what were your first couple of hours spent doing?
I was sent a physical copy. I was also sent a digital code. That's got some stuff to do with how this game is being reviewed. But no, I did get a physical copy and installed that and just waited for it to install. And the first thing I did was go to I wanted to see how the career files would be imported. And I sunk a lot of time into my pitcher, who's a guy with the Kansas City Royals. And he's in his, I think, 4th season. And they've won a World Series, got bounced out of the playoffs in another year. I wanted to see how that picked up. And I was really kind of, it's kind of a technical thing, but it was, I go, can I delete MLB 14, the show, off of my PS4, because frankly I've got a lot of crap on it. I've got so many of these, PlayStation Plus games taking up space. Can I delete it off of that and still import my file? And I was thinking I'd have to pull it out of the cloud, but I didn't. I just deleted the app and kept the save file. And pulled it straight in, and it was like I had not stopped playing, and the only difference was I was just playing a new game. Rosters are the same, league makeup is the same. Nick Swisher still is playing in the year 2016 for some damned reason, and I'm still striking him out as I did tonight. And it was kind of jarring in a way. If you could be like really put off guard by the sameness of it all, of the experience, that would be my experience, which was like, this is an iterative work, and I think this year, and we'll get into this later in this hangout, I'm sure, I think this year we're talking about a lot of refined changes to the game as opposed to structural ones like we saw last year with quick counts and with player lock and other stuff like that. And it was really weird to just sort of jump in and go, I'm playing the latest game, but I feel like I'm playing the old game. And I think if enough players have that feeling and that expectation and that experience, then they go, well, why can't everybody else do this?
Yeah, no, you actually made several interesting points in there, all of which I want to touch on. And I guess there's no better time than now. one of the things I actually will wind up doing a review of this game for Games Radar, and one of the biggest things I'm sort of kicking around in my head about discussing the game on a site like Games Radar, which is not focused on sports, and is how to properly, if at all, discuss how different this game would feel to people like us who have played the show literally since its inception versus somebody who may have skipped a couple of years and this is their first time on the PlayStation 4 versus somebody who basically has never played it. There will be all three of those kinds of people playing MLB The Show. Brian, I mean, for people like us, there is a lot of sameness. No matter how much we may or may not be enjoying it, there's a lot of sameness to MLB The Show. When you approach this game and communicating with the people who read your site, which way do you go with that?
Well, I think there has to be a mix. Well, first of all, if you're someone who buys the game every year, you probably like it. So you're gonna know what to expect, and I think that's the important thing. And with the show, that's always been kind of true. You know what it's going to do well. You know where it probably is not going to do well. And if it suits you, if it fits you, if you enjoy that, it's a very safe buy. So that's a lot of what they did this year with the game is improving on things that they already did well in the past. So that's easy stuff for those people who play every year to identify. But then there also has to be consideration to the people who don't buy every year or are kind of new to it. I mean, there are no arcade games anymore. So, well, there are, but we won't get into that. But there's such a jump from going from nothing to the show, which is considered really a difficult and kind of inaccessible game for those who are inexperienced with it. So you have to lay out what does it offer to the general player, to someone who isn't rabid about the show or isn't, completely passionate about baseball. They don't have a favorite team. There's so many different ways to play games these days, different modes, different options, and the show has always done a good job with options too. So you kind of have to lay out, what's new, but then you also have to identify what it does well and how it's improved upon those things, and then what it doesn't do well and whether they attempted to improve those things.
So let's stay with Road to the Show. Owen, you are a Road to the Show guy. You played, I presume, a significant percentage of your time last year in Road to the Show, and I believe that is also where you are spending the bulk of your time this year. From a new and improved perspective, what is there in Road to the Show, if anything, this year?
In terms of Road to the Show specific experience, I haven't seen like really transformational stuff. I've seen a lot of changes in the user interface, in the menus, in how you keep up to date with what's going on around you. Because again, I just straight imported the guy I was playing from last year's game into this one. In terms of gameplay experience, I play as a pitcher principally, and we'll get to this in a bit. But the way that I pitch, and I don't know if you guys saw it earlier today, but I have kind of achieved legend difficulty. I mean, I'm just saying I'm that good.
Some more TJ/Owen humble bragging going on here, or maybe not humble brag.
I put in that much work, okay? I mean, all I'm saying, Rick, and Brian, and Smith, who looks like he's just joined us here.
Yes.
All I'm saying is that I am the best pitcher in this game who does not work for Sony San Diego Studio.
Good to know. Good to know.
But they've included in pitching, and you'll see this in any mode, a trajectory.
Yes, I love that.
Let's talk about this when we go into gameplay specifics. This has really changed sort of how I operate, but it also has informed sort of the story of my pitcher in his latest season, which is like, I guess, 2017 or something, or 2016, excuse me. He's still very good, but he's got to be craftier. To but I actually, Brian, you're a big guy about this. Loading times seem to be shorter for me, at least. I don't know. I'm not sure if they are for you who puts the stopwatch on things. I have not done that. But I feel like I get into games faster. Of course, I do pitch, and it's not like I'm coming in to do 4 at-bats and then get the hell out. I have not, however, and I have been going through my menus trying to figure out if I have some kind of a setting that isn't checked, or if this only activates when you begin a new season. This radio show that they've talked about, I've not heard it at all. Not in the menus. And I'm sort of curious, what your experiences are with it, because, I'm in June now in this season, and, we've been on a 6-game losing. I'm with the Royals. We've been on a 6-game losing streak. We're 4 games out of first place after having been in first place. I have no idea what's going on. I've not heard this radio show. Is any of this ring a bell with any of you other guys?
Well, I'll tell you this, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, because I'm playing a franchise, and that's where I'm spending the bulk of my time, and I haven't heard a peep from this radio show either. It could just be something I haven't turned on. It could be something that doesn't kick in until later. This is the thing that, and you and I have certainly talked about it in the past. I always just think, okay, I'm doing something wrong. That's just where I go to.
Right.
This kind of thing. So, as we mentioned, Mr. Sumit Sarkar is joining us as well from Polygon. Sumit, welcome back to the show, sir.
Yeah, it's interesting because I thought I wasn't going to be able to make it tonight, but here I am, and I've been playing all day, pretty much today as well. So I thought if you guys would have me, if our watchers were interested in the perspective of someone who's going to be a long-suffering Yankees fan for the next few years.
Uh-oh. So let's talk about it, Sumit. You played a lot today. What did you do? Where did you spend the bulk of your time, and why? I guess is the 2 questions.
Yeah, still pretty much you're focusing on Road to the Show. Mostly because I'm trying to see, what it does differently in terms of importing a character, which, like I said yesterday, I did import someone myself from MLB 14 on PS4. Also started messing around with some of the not the Diamond Dynasty, but the reward stuff. You get card packs, or not card packs, but cards for like players and equipment and things like that. It's just as you play the game in different modes and stuff like that. So just kind of dipping my toe into those waters. It's weird for me. I don't want to say that I'm turned off by that stuff, but I do sort of hesitate to mess around with it too deeply. I mean, certainly I will, because I'm reviewing the game. I want to see everything, but I don't know, that stuff. I kind of I'm just sort of giving it some side eye right now, but I'll explore it some more.
Oh, and have you dabbled in outfitting your player with a whole lot of these various accoutrements that come with MLB The Show 15?
Just the legacy rewards that they give you for being somebody who had MLB 14, and I think I used the cologne. There's like some kind of what is it? It's the mojo, not the mojo, the superstition. What? The categories are like what? Bat, shoes, glove, something, and
right.
Then there's ritual. Excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah, I have the ritual cologne that they give to everybody, and it's done very well on my walks per 9 innings rating, and I think it also affects your hit per 9 innings rating. It also affects hitting, but I don't hit because I'm an American League pitcher, so who gives a damn about that? I mean, Sony's touting of the licensed equipment appearance in this game. I mean, it's nice. It's a very nice to have thing. as something that sells the game, you know, I don't go to this game looking for a Rawlings glove or a Mizuno bat, you know, or a Rawlings Adirondack bat or a Maple bat or any of those other things. You know, it's those are things that when they make themselves known, it's in, you know, very specific instances that happen once out of 20 times. It's nice, but it's not why I'm here.
Right. So you mentioned loading times, Brian. I know that you have done some statistical analysis on those loading times. Why don't you throw some math at us for a minute? Compare last year versus this year.
Yeah, last year was, as everybody knows, horrendous as far as loading times go because they got worse from PS3 to PS4. So just the initial boot sequence to get to the main menu. In MLB 15, it takes 54 seconds. That's 27 seconds faster than MLB 14. So 54 seconds is still pretty significant, but that's 27 seconds faster. Where it really matters, though, is when you're going to be loading into games, in and out of games quite a bit. So it takes about 31 seconds to load into just a normal game, and that's 40 seconds fewer than MLB 14. I mean, we were talking well over a minute in MLB 14. And then same with Road to the Show and community challenges. Those are 31, 32 seconds to get in. Now, Road to the Show, it was actually fairly quick last year, so you're saving 13 seconds this year. But on the community challenges, I think probably because that's more server-based, last year those took over a minute and 20 seconds to load. And those could take 1 minute to finish, and then you're back in the menus loading into another. So it's a pretty significant jump. It doesn't make the show the fastest loading sports game out there, but at least brings it in line with all the others.
Okay, and we're going to get into some franchise stuff. I've spent a lot of time in that. We're going to get into some Diamond Dynasty stuff some more. I know Brian has spent some time in that, but I want to stay on Road to the Show for a little bit. Both of you, again, Sumit and Owen, you are have spent sounds like the bulk of your time on Road to the Show. I'll ask you first, Owen, but I'm going to ask you, Sumit, the same thing. Let's say there was not the ability to import your guy. Would you still have gone right to Road to the Show, or do you think that was perhaps a bit of a prompt that pushed you a little bit more? I'll start with you, Owen.
That's a really good question. I've always used Road to the Show as a kind of bite-sized introduction to what's different in this game. Like if when I was reviewing it, you know, I'd have a pitcher, I'd have a hitter, and the hitter would usually be an infield player because I would want to see how the fielding was handled from that first-person perspective. And then I would just completely regress into the pitcher and move on from it because they manipulate so much of the game and handle the rest of the game, you know, in franchise. If I had to start all over again and I was going to be, you know, with the Trenton Thunder, where Sumit was just tearing it up. I mean, like, my God, last night he had like a 17 strikeout game, right? And a shutout. A one-hitter. Feel free to jump in here, Sumit. No.
I mean, well, we talked about it last night. I think our listeners and watchers are tired of hearing me bragging about my performance, especially because as someone forced me to out myself on Twitter today as playing on veteran, which apparently is what scrubs do, but whatever.
Well, veteran. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't know you guys talked about it last night. Veteran's still tough. Pulse pitching's still tough. Anyway, but if I had to start this all over again, I might not have gone directly to Road to the Show just because I know it so intimately. And to be honest, Road to the Show still hasn't shown me the kind of lifestyle side of a career mode that, you know, obviously, you know, NBA 2K, which is the class of this particular mode, I haven't seen anything close to that. And then, you know, FIFA's Be a Pro, you know, Madden, those games also do have much more service in their individual career modes than MLB The Show does. So I really wanted to go in and see that and go, wow, am I actually just as good in this year's game as I was in last year's game? And for the most part, I am, but and I don't want to Bigfoot the discussion. We'll get back to it in a second. I think the game does have. I am as good in this year's game as I was in last year's game. There are things that this year's game does, for a pitcher at least, that I've observed that makes me better or smarter. I'll put it that way. So I've really good experience playing Road to the Show and importing my career. I've not seen a lot of the other phases of the game, but if I had to start from scratch, I don't think I would know as much about how Road to the Show plays now than I did before, because when you start out in this game, you really are underpowered. This is a game that really does know a player's strength and when to promote him. And it does do some silly things, like if you create a really old player with some strong superlatives in some categories, you will get promoted faster. But if you do the usual, stud out of high school, you're going to spend 4 years in the minors, and that's a real hard row to hoe.
So, Matt, let's assume you were not reviewing the game for a minute. Would you have did the fact that you could bring forward your player from last year, would that have prompted you more to play Road to the Show, or would you just have gone right to Road to the Show no matter what, regardless?
I play Road to the Show as more than anything in this game. It's my favorite mode. So I think I just gravitate to that more just naturally. I always do every year. I didn't review the show last year. Owen reviewed it for Polygon, but I still played pretty much nothing but Road to the Show. In fact, I realized I went to look to import my franchise from MLB 14, and I guess I never started one. I just did 2 different Road to the Show guys, So yeah, I would have checked it out regardless. But what I do like, and I think I might have touched on this in yesterday's discussion, but what I like is that, again, you can bring in your guy from last year, and it'll have the additions that they made this year, which are few in terms of Road to the Show, but mainly you have that equipment. And I thought, I'm with Owen in terms of the authentic equipment not making much of a difference to me in terms of on the field, but I was never one of those people who was like complaining to EA about getting like whatever Seahawks neon green gloves in Madden or something. That's like, I don't care.
Yeah, we all know that was Brian. It's obvious.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, people are saying like, oh, well, Ben Roethlisberger's number 7 should be not between the stripes; it should be on one of the stripes on the whatever. That stuff doesn't make a difference to me as much. I mean, it's a nice thing to have. But what I like about the show's implementation of it is that they do give you a reason to care in the form of the attribute boosts that you get from that stuff. So that's where, and that's something that it could even push me into doing, Diamond Dynasty, where it's like, oh, if I can earn or randomly get chances for like gold ritual items, which I think I got one, and it was like +10 to my walks per 9 innings rating or something like that. And that's something that makes a difference, a palpable difference, I think. So I like that they were able to do that stuff.
Interesting. And by the way, I should have mentioned at the top, and I did not. We do have the Q&A app open, so if those of you who are watching live, you can submit some questions in that if you have them. Brian, I know we're going to get to Diamond Dynasty in a minute, but you also did import a Road to the Show character. I was watching on your live stream the other night. You brought him in. You dominated for a little bit. Have you spent much more time in Road to the Show? And does Road to the Show appeal to you in the same way that it appeals to Owen and Sumit?
Yeah, I think to an extent it does, and it's because you can focus on just your player. It makes it easier, and especially since I can just be a pitcher and get away from all the struggles with hitting, that's nice. But as far as the mode hasn't really changed all that much since last year, or really much at all. The only difference really comes with the equipment that you can assign them, like we were talking about there, the various equipment and the boosts you get from that, and the rituals and the boosts you get from that. So, I'm sorry, Rich, I may have forgot part of your question there.
Well, basically, does it appeal to you? I mean, do you think once you get out of the initial, writing the pieces and reviewing and making sure you cover everything, when you sit down to play this game for fun, does Road to the Show appeal to you as your sort of your go-to mode?
It always feels like that, and then after a couple months, it might fade out. It's because we've done it for so many years now with this mode, and we haven't gotten the evolution of the mode like we have in NBA 2K, for example. And the great part of transferring the saves over is we continue that progress and everything. So I started up with my 2016 guy. But the downside to that is, and I've mentioned this before, I'm not sure how much they can actually change Road to the Show because of that. If they're going to continue to allow you to take your save year to year, you're going to get small things like the equipment and stuff, but you're not going to get a story mode out of this. It's just not going to be compatible. So I would like to see something, maybe a different mode then, that really takes on the story idea, because I think it would work well in baseball too.
Yeah, I mean, and that's sort of where I am with Road to the Show. I clearly, as one of the four of us here, I'm the only one that has zero desire to play Road to the Show, and it's not because I think it's a bad mode. It's clearly not a bad mode. It's because, number one, I've been ruined for it by NBA 2K15, but also because with the show, no matter which direction you go. By the way, I'm getting some echo. I'm not sure if everybody can mute real quick. With the show, no matter which mode you go in, it's a multi-hour, investment of time. I mean, I'm still getting the echo. If everybody could mute across, that would be helpful. No matter what mode you play in the show, it is almost an infinite. I mean, it's not, but I mean, it's a 50, 100. I mean, you could play the show for hundreds of hours. You could play a franchise for hundreds of hours. You could play Dynasty for hundreds of hours. So it's kind of the combination that I'm burned out on the mode because I played it so much, and also it's just that there's no realistic end to it. So that's really where I look at it and I'm like, I don't have it in me to do this again without something else more compelling pulling me. But again, clearly I am in the minority on that. It's fine. It's not a knock on it. It's a personal thing with that. So gameplay a little bit. I want to talk about that when you touched on it a little bit earlier with. The show, you made an interesting point that I never really thought of. The show in a microcosm almost gives you a distilled version of all the new stuff in the game, whether it's the menus, whether it's the gameplay. And you said that you're a pitcher, so tell me a little bit, what do you think about whatever they're offering new pitching? How do you pitch, and what are your initial thoughts on anything that has modified or perhaps even stayed the same, and that may be a good thing?
Well, even for longtime players of this game, I would advise them to turn on, and this is important because when you import your character from Road to the Show, or I assume if you import from franchise or season, you're going to import the settings relevant to those modes. Like I had everybody muted in the broadcast, and that carried over. So keep that in mind. But if when you import your character, go into the mode specific, just the gameplay modes, and make sure that you have the pitching trajectory arc on. There are a lot of advanced players who play, without the strike zone call out, without the heat map of the batter that you're facing, and other things like that. At least enable the new trajectory that this game has, which shows where the ball is going to travel once it leaves the pitcher's hand, and then where it should end up in the catcher's glove, and I don't know if I'm doing this right. I'm throwing at a higher level of difficulty, but it seems to be that I have a spread of where the ball's going to end up as opposed to a single line. The reason that this is useful or interesting or important is it has taught me to use more of the plate, not only to try to bite at the corners or get a batter to chase something he doesn't want to hit, but it's also like when you're playing the game, and a lot of people either pitch to contact or they throw a ball in the strike zone if they have the strike zone framed in this game. That's just a natural instinct. Why do you want to throw it outside of the strike zone? Especially if the hitter doesn't chase it. And hitters still don't chase a lot of things in this game.
And they foul everything off, by the way. Everything. Oh my gosh. At least
right. But I realized if I was throwing things in the strike zone where I really didn't want to throw them in the strikes, this is almost zen. But the whole thing was I was more comfortable throwing with my dual shock vibrating and saying, "Whoa, you can't." When your dual shock vibrates, it's like you're aiming outside of the strike zone, even if in the old game the break point would suggest that the ball would end up in the strike zone. Does that make any sense?
Yes, definitely does. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right, but you still didn't know exactly where it would end up. Like if you had maxed out your curveball's break, it would have the 4 arrows. And you would go, and if you were using breakpoint pitching, it would be like, okay, well, I'm going to put it up here, and maybe it'll end up down here. I don't know. With the trajectory, you know where it will end up, and it's like dead center in the middle of the strike zone, and your controller is vibrating like crazy, and you go, oh, I should be aiming here. This is all esoteric crap. All I'm saying is the trajectory mechanism has made me more comfortable using like the entirety of the plate,
yes,
and even throwing outside of the strike zone, which is, I think, any major league pitcher would tell you, it's part of the game because you can't just throw it, throw balls that can be hit. Your job as a pitcher is to give the other batter nothing to hit and retire the batter. That's it. Yep. And this game, I feel with the trajectory mechanism, it puts you in that mindset more than in past editions.
I know you're a pitcher, Owen. Brian, I know you're a pitcher. Simon, are you a pitcher on your road to the show as well? You are, right? You have the one road to the show pitcher. You don't have a hitter as well. You're not living a dual life or anything like that, right?
I had a hitter. Like I said, last year I had 2 road to the show characters. I believe one of them was a hitter, but no, this year it's just I only imported the one. So yeah, it's a pitcher, and I do pitcher for the same reason that Owen and I assume most people do. It's just that when you're a starter, you just get so much. You play the full 9 innings if you can make it, and you have so much of an impact on the outcome of the game. I much prefer that to the idea of getting up once every 3 innings and having like 5 or 6 scattered fielding chances.
All right, lightning round around the table. We'll start with you, Submit. Do you just slavishly use whatever pitch the catcher calls for in whatever location, or do you ignore him and do whatever you want to do? Submit.
Are you kidding? I ignore him completely. I don't even look most of the time at where I just I've gotten to the point where I have a sort of this is going to sound pompous. I like to think that I'm putting myself in the mindset of a big league pitcher, or in my case a double-A pitcher, and I have a plan of attack for every hitter, and sure, that's primarily based on the hot zones that show up in the strike zone, but I go in there and I see who's up at the plate. I consider the situation in terms of how many outs there are, who's on what base, and I say, here I'm going to really try to keep the ball down because I want to induce a double play, or this guy's he's a real free swinger, so I'm just not going to give him anything to hit. And I go about my own business and rarely take stock of what the catcher is suggesting.
Brian Weeda, do you ignore the catcher and do what you want to, or do you pitch whatever he says, or do you mix it up?
I'd say probably 80% of the time I throw what I want to throw. Occasionally I'll see the catcher call for something, and I'll think to myself, maybe there's a reason they're calling for that. And if I make that pitch in that spot, they're not going to do anything to me. So that's kind of the way I lean, is usually what I'm throwing is based on the pitch I threw last rather than what the catcher's asking for.
Owen Good, do you do what Owen Good wants to do, or do you do what your catcher suggests that you do?
I am totally a situational pitcher, and if there's nobody on, I'm happy taking the advanced pitch interface call from Salvador Perez, who calls a fantastic game for the Kansas City Royals in 2016. In a pressure situation, in a situation where I feel like I have, like when a guy is very late on a fastball or is very early on an off-speed pitch, that's a real tip-off to me, as a pitcher, because obviously the whole point of the business is timing and destroying that timing. And if the next suggestion isn't consistent with, giving him something that he can't hit, giving him something that he may be expecting, giving him something that was consistent with the last pitch, then I'll go off message from that. I think my attitude might be framed a little because I have an unorthodox repertoire. I came in as a hard stuff pitcher with, fastball, changeup, and slider, so no straight curve, and then figured I'd role play it and developed a slurve off the slider. So, I have like 3 80-mile-an-hour pitches, and then I've got the blowtorch. And that can create some real interesting problems because the off-speed can look the same, to a hitter, I guess, in this AI. But I like playing the timing game, and I don't think this game. I think this game puts it on you to understand hitters' timing more than, you can't just accept the catcher's call, because when you freeze somebody on an off-speed pitch, man, it is fantastic. It's one of the best things in sports gaming. And I guess here's your segue, Rich. It goes into a great emotive moment, usually you on the couch, but it does.
I slavishly, whatever the pitcher calls, I just go right to it. As soon as that little icon lights up, I click it, I aim right where his glove is, and I throw it, and I'm successful a lot. And, of course, most of the time, no matter how I aim it and stuff, it doesn't go where it's supposed to go anyway, unless I get it, right on the little sliver there anyway. I mean, I'm like, hey, look, this catcher, he knows what he's doing, and I'm a pitcher, and if I do the right thing, it's going to be successful. Brian Weedeye, evidently, emotion was a big part of this year's game. I remember last year, when I'd get a big strikeout at the end of a game, I'd see my reliever, pump his fist or get excited. I don't recall anybody being particularly stiff or, robotic last year. This year there was supposed to be a lot more of that. So far in the couple of days that you've spent with it, what's your impression been of the emotion of the game and the crowd, or perhaps the lack thereof? You're muted, by the way, Brian.
Yeah. Sorry about that. This was our number one anticipated feature. We did a hangout and an article on Sporting News about it, was the player emotion and personality. Now, there's still emotion there. Like you said, there was emotion in the game already. I'm not seeing a whole lot more than that. What I was really looking for was stuff I'd identify with specific players or in specific situations, things happening. And I got a save with Fernando Rodney, and he just stands there, and that's it. Where's his arrow celebration? That's what I was waiting for. And when I didn't see that, I was like, I was really let down by that, just that one specific thing even. but I just haven't seen a whole lot different with it, and I've played however many hours now. I would have thought I'd be seeing more than I have in that area. Now, as it goes to the crowd, they did some good stuff with the crowd this year, especially because I hopped into postseason mode, and the crowd has the towels back, which is a big deal for the atmosphere in those games, and they're just generally amped up more. So that's there. I think it's just the individual personality I wanted to see more out of, and was hoping would be there this year, and maybe it will. Maybe over time that stuff will start to pop up, and maybe in a franchise mode as opposed to an exhibition game. I don't know if we'll see more of it there, but that was just a bit of a letdown for me so far.
That's a great point. One of the things, MLB, it is a slow burn. Like, right away there's things that you notice, but there are things that you will notice in the show 30 days, 60 days, 90 days out. And a lot of it definitely depends upon what you're doing, what you're playing. Oh, and it sounds like you've had a little bit more emotion from your pitcher. Maybe that's just because you have programmed him to be an extension of you, perhaps. But sounds like you've seen a little bit more of the emotion come out. Is that the case?
I've seen a little bit more, or a little bit more variance, I'd put it that way, but I want to get back to what you said about it being a slow burn. I mean, I think that's true of any sports video game with a career mode. I do think, Madden was a slow burn for me. FIFA was a slow burn for me. PES was a slow burn for me. There are all sorts of things that's like, once it gets its hooks into you, then you start to see a lot of the subtle things that it has to offer. So, it's kind of hard to. The MLB the show this year, and I think that anybody who's played this series for a very long time, saw how it was being marketed and saw the features that were being rolled out, and understood that this was like they did their big structural stuff last year, okay, and that this year they were going to start checking off a lot of things on their honey-do list that either they wanted to fix or enhance, or the community wanted to fix or enhance. So, I had somebody earlier today, and Rich, I apologize, I've gone way off message here. I had a lot of people ask me, give me your one tweet appraisal of MLB the show, and I'm like, what differentiates it from last year is very subtle. I can't do that in 140 characters. It's still a great game. If it made no improvement off of last year, it frankly still is a good game and a great simulation of baseball. I'm astounded. I'm glad that Brian jumped on here and gave us the loading times. That might be the MVP of this game.
That was what really? That was what I was really, because it's not just, it's no matter what you play in the game, it's saving you time that you just wasted.
Yeah, it gets you back into it faster and faster and faster. And this, we'll see this in other games too down the line. Yeah. Rich, I forgot your question.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. It was about emotion, but
emotion. Oh, no. I have seen. I'm sorry, because I give up. I'm a guy, like I said. Sometimes I end up pitching contact. And I have seen a greater, and again, it's just one of those subtle things. And it's like, I'm not going to sell a game off of how my pitcher smacks his glove when he gives up a home run that he shouldn't have in the fourth inning, versus when he gives up a home run in the ninth inning, like he did tonight, for his fourth straight no decision. But it really did. It's like you see it in his. I saw it in his eyeballs anyway. It was like, why the hell did I throw that pitch? And it was totally a pitch that I decided to throw. It wasn't called out by the API.
Listen to your catcher, man. Come on. That's obvious.
You got to know when to go off message, and I just didn't. But there was a reaction that was different, and you go, this guy gets it. At least it was for me. Anyway.
Awesome. All right, let's move to Diamond Dynasty. Brian Weeda, you have spent some time there today. I don't know if you necessarily, and I'm stealing a line from you shamelessly, I don't know if you necessarily played Diamond Dynasty or if you just went into Diamond Dynasty. Tell us about your experience playing the mode that is by far the most communicated and the most upheaval, the biggest changes. I mean, this is by far the biggest, differentiator this year between any other version of MLB Show in the past.
Yeah, so it is, because they really took what was just an overwhelming mode. It was just not friendly to anybody, even the people who are accustomed to the Ultimate Team-like modes, and it just didn't work for anybody. So they really brought it down to what's important. It's more along the lines of an Ultimate Team now. And yeah, I'm not sure if I'd say I've played a whole lot of Diamond Dynasty, but I've done things setting it up and arranging things. And really, in Diamond Dynasty, that's like 75% of what you do anyway. The rest is playing some games. But so I set up my team. I set up my Diamond Dynasty player, which is one of the bigger differences this year. Is you get one player who you can put at any position, and then you improve him by training, by feeding him cards. They call it feeding him cards. You get rid of your cards, and it infuses your player with better ratings. And I opened up all my Anniversary Edition packs and got some better players. Now I have a mediocre lineup. But I went in there and I was feeding my player, and I set up my logo, which I cannot use this logo creator thing, but they do have the ability to download logos other people have made. So I just downloaded one now, and my uniforms are horrifically ugly. It's like neon green and blue and tan. I just threw colors on.
It's like I'm not an ugly hybrid between the Sounders and the Seahawks is what it sounds like.
It's pretty bad. So I'm not going to spend 2 hours making my uniforms at this point anyway. Maybe in a week or whatever, but at this point. And just going through, and I sorted through the marketplace a little bit to see what things were selling for, what you could sell things for. So when I first went in, it still felt a little heavy to me. It was like, here's all this stuff you can do, but I don't know really what should I do first, and what's the easiest way to go about building this team, and do I just go in and play a game, or do I have to spend all this time trying to master the best lineups I can get and acquire more cards through Universal Rewards or by buying them? There's a lot of questions you have when you start a Diamond Dynasty, and I think that can be, for a beginner again, that might be a little heavy for them. So because if it is for me, then I kind of feel like it would be for others. So that's where I'm at. I played one game in it, and otherwise, I just set it up, and I just haven't had a whole lot of time to invest in it. But I think the changes are for the most part all positives. It's just a matter of whether it's going to click or not. I'm not sure yet.
Are you going to continue playing it? I mean, obviously you're going to continue playing it because of, Pasta Padre. But I mean, let's just take that out for a second. Are you curious, just as someone who likes to play sports games, are you curious about this, curious enough to keep on going even if you did not have your professional responsibilities?
I think I could be. It's dependent on some other things. It's dependent on the online play. Because I'm not going to find much interest in putting this team together and then just playing the computer in various challenges and setups, and whether the acquisition of players and the equipment and all that, how easily that's acquired. Because I don't want to have to spend money on this mode. Okay, I just don't. I'm not that passionate about it. I understand there are plenty of people who are going to play the mode, really get into it, and feel like, okay, if I spend money on packs, I'm getting value out of that. I don't think I'd get value out of that. So they do give you, if you log into the show, the game for 9 days, every 9 days you log into the game, you get a free pack. Now that's just $1 value, but having a pack to open, I think, is important. Then you get the Universal Rewards for playing games. It doesn't have to be Diamond Dynasty games. You get the equipment, you get stadiums, you get players just by playing other modes. So it's going to be really dependent on online performance and whether it'll end up working out well, and how can you build that team organically. And I like what they're doing in giving you stuff for playing the game. Even if you play Road to the Show, you get a card after, or you play a franchise mode game, you get a card or two. So I like where they're going with that, and I think it could really help its longevity. But it's just it's uncertain for me at this point.
Well, can someone just explain to me something, like, and maybe we need TJ for this? Why are there cards that are like I opened all the anniversary edition packs today, and I got a card, like a stadium card, that said like PS3 only?
It's because they don't have those historic stadiums in the PS4 version.
Oh, it was a historic stadium. Oh, okay.
So you're opening packs that are available on all systems, Vita too, Vita, PS3, and PS4, right. And apparently it must just be the stadiums, those specific old-time stadiums that you can only use on the PS3. So it's a wasted card, unfortunately. Yeah, but I guess you could sell it.
I guess there are others too, because I know that they added 10 minor league stadiums only to the PS4 version. So I guess that if you got the cards for them, they wouldn't be applicable on PS3 or
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what happens with Diamond Dynasty with the community. I mean, if you look at FIFA, obviously Ultimate Team is massive. Even with Madden, Madden Ultimate Team has a very dedicated and significant community. It'll be interesting to see if Diamond Dynasty stays this small little, dedicated but relatively small community, or if it does achieve its desired goal of bringing more people into it. And obviously a lot of that depends upon the performance. Brian, I mean, how is the overall performance? Menus and getting in and out of stuff, is that the same as the rest of the game, or are you seeing differences?
Yeah, thank you for reminding me on that, because that was a major point I wanted to make about Diamond Dynasty, is that Diamond Dynasty is server driven. You have to be online and connected to their servers to do anything. So as we were speaking, I got disconnected from the server, and it just knocked me out to the main menu. But I haven't had too many problems with the servers. It's just that it slows everything down. So as opposed to the instantaneous things that happen in every other mode in the game, if you go into Diamond Dynasty and you're going into, let's just say you go into your lineup and you have to hit R1 to move to a different position, it takes like 4 or 5 seconds for that to happen. So it can make things really tedious and frustrating when you're trying to accomplish something in there, if you have to do a lot of different tasks, because it takes a while. And it definitely has slowed things down, and I think that could be a factor also in, do I want to keep putting my time into here when I can just go and spend my time in a different mode that just feels more responsive.
Right. Well, let's talk about a mode that feels more responsive. That is franchise. As the old man on the show, I guess I'm the guy who's supposed to go into the traditional mode that we've all played forever, which is franchise mode. I spent the bulk of my time so far playing franchise mode, not because I wanted to do something different than Road to the Show like Owen and Submit, or didn't want to do Diamond Dynasty. It's just, to me right now, that has the most appeal. I'm having a lot of fun in NBA 2K playing my GM, and they've added some nifty things to that as we talked about on the Hangout last week, things like owner expectations and such. In the franchise mode, I was interested to see how those were. So, as I am wont to do when I started my franchise, I took everybody's favorite team, the New York Mets, and I immediately saw that my owner expectations were this year to finish over 500, and over the course of my contract to make the playoffs. I'm thinking, I could probably do that. That seems like something realistic.
They are, Rich. The Mets are the worst rated team in the game.
Yes, they are. I saw that. I was like, wow, they're rated worse than anybody. Anybody. And,
I mean, the Yankees are rated. The Yankees are 30th out of 30 in contact.
But you know what? That's very realistic, because if the Mets are crappy and the ownership says you still must finish 500 and make the playoffs with the crappy roster we've given you, I mean, that's reality.
That's the Wilpons.
That's the New York market.
That's the Wilpons. So I did what I always do, which is I immediately skipped right through spring training, and I started opening day. And opening day in Washington against the fearsome Nationals, Matt Harvey threw 8 spectacular innings, 119 pitches. I could not take him into the 9th inning. The Mets were up 4-1 going into the bottom of the 9th. I brought in Jerry Mejia, who at the end of his appearance had an ERA of INF. Infinite.
That's beautiful.
He faced 4 batters. He gave up 4 hits, and he gave up 4 runs and got no outs, including the final hit, a 2-run walk-off home run to Bryce Harper. And Matt Harvey's spectacular struggle against the powerful Nats was turned into an ND, and Meha got the blown save. So, as soon as the game was over, I went on the paltry free agent market, and I signed Rafael Soriano, and I immediately sent Mejia down to the minors. And after that game, I decided to go back to doing what I had been doing so much in my non-online franchise games last year, which was I player lock. I pick a player and I player lock for the first 6 innings. And so far, I player locked with Lucas Duda. So I just, every time he comes to the plate, I step up and I take my full at bat. And then once it gets to the top of the 7th inning, I unplayer lock and I play the rest of the game. And I played 5 games in about 3 hours today doing that. And at the end of 6 games, the first 6 games of the season, the Mets are 4-2. I won 2 out of 3 in Washington, and I won 2 out of 3 in Atlanta. I'm telling you guys, this whole thing that I don't know if I invented it, like obviously because player lock is there for a reason, but picking a guy and spending 5 minutes watching the game play out and then playing the final full 3 innings is a really wonderful way to experience this game. Because when it's simming, you're able to follow it and you can jump in anytime. You don't feel like you're not part of the experience. And because you get to step in and every 2 or 3 innings you get into the game, you feel like you're part of it. And then once you're in the 7th and then you're pitching and you're hitting and you're doing everything, I cannot overstate how great of a way it is for me to play the game that way. And you guys know I'm big on playing games on the treadmill, and I'm able to get 2 games in a 45-minute 3-mile walk on the treadmill, and I just love it. And the menus in franchise mode are snappier this year. It's easier to sort of find things. I mean, there's so much that you can do in the franchise mode. They've done a nice job in sort of organizing it. I had no problem finding a closer to offer a contract to. I had no problem demoting Mejia very quickly.
Can I ask, are you in year 2020 in your franchise, are you still paying Bobby Bonilla deferred money?
Yeah. He delights. I don't know where the delight comes from, but the delight in the failures of the Mets. Owen, it's fantastic. Another thing, too, I'm looking for trades. Like, obviously, the Mets are not good. They actually have a terrific starting staff and a couple of decent relievers, but they just have no hitting. And so I've been exploring some trades, and I give MLB The Show credit, too. It makes trading easy. They will give you some nice recommendations. I almost pulled the trigger on a trade for a power hitting outfielder, but they wanted a Double-A pitcher of mine who has a potential of A, and so I was like, I might not want to do that. So, but it's very early in the season, so there's a lot of interesting stuff, very subtle, going on in franchise. But I'm telling you again, just player lock in for those first 6 innings, and then playing the final 3 innings is just, man, I love that. It has really reinvigorated me with MLB The Show. It actually takes elements of Road to the Show, right? Because when you're player lock, you have that one guy experience, but it combines it with the full game. So I've been having a lot of fun with that, and I'm not going to make a false claim like T.J. Lyerman does, when he always says every year he's going to play 162 games, and then he never does, ever. But I know, because I'm having fun and I can work it into a reasonable amount of time, I'm going to keep on doing this. Like, this is the way that I'm going to play MLB 15 The Show. Is I'm going to play my franchise. I'm going to player lock and do it. One of the things we talked about so much last year was we all play the show very differently, and it's one of the great things about the game. So that's how I'm going to be doing it. All right, Submit, you played some online games with fellow Press Row podcaster Kat Bailey today. How did that go? Because online we've had some anecdotal evidence of some positives, but also some anecdotal evidence of some negatives. So I'm very curious to see how your games went with Kat.
Yeah, I know some of us have had some problems. We'll hear later on. But first off, I wanted to talk about the online games that I played with Kat because I beat her in both of them, which is rare for me.
Well done, sir. Well done.
Rare for me to beat Kat in a sports video game. But she handicapped herself in the first game. She played as the Twins. Just wrong. Poor decision right there. So it was my New York Yankees, led by Masahiro Tanaka, and just mowed down the Twins lineup. I think I had ended it with like 14 strikeouts or something.
Yes, sometimes you gotta give up the hometown love and go with someone who gives you a shot. Says the guy playing as the Mets.
Yeah. I think the final score was like 7-0. And then she decided to play as not the Twins. So I played as the Cardinals, and she took the Giants. And that one was much closer. That was a 2-1 finish. Madison Bumgarner versus Adam Wainwright. And overall, the experience was very, very positive.
Wow.
Yeah, I and it was for both of us because we were on party chat on PS4 the whole time. So I was able to, just like TJ was talking about last night, I was able to say, "Oh, hey, was that weird for you?" Or, so there were maybe 1 or 2 instances of like just visual anomalies. Like I saw one time, like I hit a soft liner to like the shortstop area, and it looked like the third baseman kind of like slid across the field to the shortstop position and caught it, and then it looked like he was throwing the ball to his right, but the ball went to his left, like toward the second base, toward second base. So that was kind of weird, but I guess Kat was saying that it didn't look weird for her. But in terms of the pitcher-batter interaction and trying to catch like fly balls or anything, no hitches at all there. Obviously, the timing is different. So I think I was initially just like really early on even like fastballs. So I just sort of had to slow down or take a little bit longer to swing. But other than that, and it was really, really great. And that might be the first time in the show history that I like came out of 2 online games saying like, oh, like, I mean, this is like actually, it's not just not bad, it's like viable. It's like a playable online experience. Now, again, that was 2 games. I played part of a game before I played with Kat, where I guess my opponent was having issues because we were in the 4th inning and he'd walked a couple of guys and then requested a friendly quit. So I was assuming that maybe he was having trouble with his pitching meter or whatever. But Kat and I are on opposite sides of the country. She's in San Francisco. I'm in New York, and the experience was really solid.
Nice. That's good to hear. Brian, did you play any more online today? And if so, what was your experience like?
Yeah. So yesterday we had a couple positive experiences. I played TJ, and of course I beat him, even though he's proclaimed himself to be the best player in the world.
Yeah. It's funny how that happens.
Yeah. So one thing I noticed, and it held true today in a couple games I tried out, was that the performance online seems to be better, but the reliability might not be there. Basically, the responsiveness is much, much better, and you not only do you feel it, does it feel close to an offline game, but if you go, and I do this every year, I go and look at the statistics on the leaderboard, because we all know it's hard enough to hit offline, and then you go online and deal with the lag. It becomes almost impossible. So in the past, past years, you look at the top players, and these should be, you would presume, the best players because their records are the best, and they would still have averages in the low 200s. They would still be striking out 15 or 16 times a game because it was just impossible almost to make contact online. But this year, I went and looked, and the top players are all batting 320, 310, 280, far more realistic numbers, and they're not striking out 20 times a game. They're striking out 6 times a game. So you see, and it almost felt like in the games I've played that it's easier to hit than online or than offline, and I don't know if it's some adjustment they made or the difficulty level that we had it set to. But the outcomes, the actual playing the games are better. But then you still get the occasional instances where you see something different than what your opponent sees. I had one today, and I posted a video where I hit the ball, and it looked like his outfielders just stopped, and the ball landed behind him, and I kept rounding the bases, and then it cut to my next batter with it out. So they obviously caught the ball normal on my opponent's side, and then on mine I saw something different. And then later on in the game, I got a crash to the dashboard, which is something I had seen a lot of comments about on Twitter from people, is this crash to the dashboard when playing online games. So there are those concerns. I'm encouraged by the way the games are playing, but if they're going to have, and you can almost deal with the weird visual stuff, but if they're going to have crashes, if that's going to be something you're worried about, when you're going in and going to spend nearly an hour to play a 9-inning online game, I'm not going to do that if I think there's even a 10% chance that it's going to crash in the middle and it's all, I just wasted all of my time there. So some good, some bad. In general, it's probably better than I expected, even considering those things.
Yep, and as we've talked about, almost ad infinitum, is that the nature of baseball just does not lend itself to online play in the way that we are accustomed to in other games. A game of Madden will be like 35, 40, 45 minutes. But a game of NBA basketball is 30 minutes. A game of NHL is less than half an hour. A lot of things have to work very well for a long period of time to get an entire baseball game. So it's kind of it continues to be in one of those weird spots. Well, all right, this has been great. Before we wrap up, I want to make sure that I mention that we will have the full review roundtable next week for the Press Rub podcast. Both last night's Hangout and this Hangout tonight will be part of this week's Press Rub podcast. We will have even more in-depth discussions about a lot of the things that we've been talking about after we've had a few more days. But before we go, I want to just get a final thought from everybody. Owen, I want to start with you real quick. You tweeted something that I thought that was very interesting today. It was something that you had never seen in the show before, which was a ground ball that was hit to your pitcher, and your pitcher decided to do something interesting. And I saw that, and I thought that was interesting. I asked you to describe that.
It could only be described as deliberate because it was a slow comebacker. It wasn't a dribbler up through the box with a no out runner on second and nobody on first, and my pitcher waved at it. So this is in Road to the Show, and I didn't have a chance to take control of the pitcher, and the ball went back to the shortstop, and the runner on second had broken on contact with the ball and then ran back to the bag, slid back to the bag, dove into it. So it's a number of dynamics at work. Number one is, this is what it looks like to me, and maybe it's happenstance, maybe it's coincidence, and it makes the game look smarter than it is, but it's a smart baseball play. The pitcher let the ball go through because you always want to keep the ball in front of the runner. That's the whole point. That gets into all sorts of other conceptual things like why right field is so important. But anyway, the ball, if the pitcher had picked up the ball, had intercepted it, made a great stab on it, he would then be faced with what is he going to get the lead runner throw down to third with a non-force out, or throw down to first and let the guy from second go to third? He let the ball through. Runner went back to the bag. Shortstop did his job, picked it up, threw down to first. I got out of the inning. And so it was a number of things. It wasn't only that it was sort of fielding intelligence, it was also this base runner intelligence that has been talked about. Base runner looking at fielders, and as soon as they know that the ball, the play is made, they're not going to, try anything outlandish. And it may be fat ass like David, baseman's mitt, but it also might mean that a guy on second base is going to go, whoa, I'm not moving anywhere if that ball, he breaks on the ball and then he sees a shortstop pick it up and he goes, no, I'm going back to the bag. It was a really interesting play. I mean, it was a play that turned the game, actually, because this was one of those plays. This was the game where I went in extra innings because I tied it up. I mean, that could have turned the game right there. It was really, I think that's where the genius of MLB The Show is. It's just in all this subtle stuff, and you just have to add it up at the end and go, they really know what they're doing with this.
Sumit Sarkar, what's one thing that sort of has stuck out to you in your 2+ days of playing it so far that, if you just want to describe one cool little thing to somebody about MLB The Show, what would that be?
Oh, man. I'm trying to think of something in particular that I've seen so far. I'm struggling to think of like a particular moment in a game, but I really like the way that I talked about this yesterday, but just the way that the directional hitting makes it is a risk reward type mechanic in terms of you deciding to guess where a pitch is going to be located and try to influence a hit to go in that particular direction. But just like the way Owen was talking about the pitch trail and how it's kind of conditioned him to start using all parts of the strike zone and go out of the strike zone. The directional hitting is, I feel like I'm just I'm not necessarily getting a lot more hits, but I'm making more contact and able to lay off pitches better because of the camera moves that they've got alongside directional hitting. And for people who don't like that, maybe some people find it disorienting, you can use directional hitting but turn the camera shift off in the settings, which again is just another example of how this franchise continues to be really, really great with allowing customizability.
Agreed. Brian Whiteye, any sort of final thoughts, something really cool, something a little different that you've noticed that just kind of stuck out to you that think is worth mentioning?
Yeah, you'll have to excuse me. I need to go spend $616 on a Brooks Robinson card for my Diamond Dynasty team. That's what stood out to me. Some ridiculous prices on the marketplace in Diamond Dynasty or for equipment and stuff, because I believe it's user set prices, so people are just going crazy. Hey, I just pulled this legend. Let's see if I can get $700 worth of stubs for it. But I think we covered most of the other stuff. The loading times was the biggest thing for me, just because it benefits you everywhere in the game. Otherwise, we've nailed on most of them so far.
I'll tell you just one little thing that I thought has been really interesting, and just playing the first week of my franchise, the crowds. Oh my gosh, I love the crowds. The crowds in MLB The Show are so much better than any crowd ever that I've ever seen in a sports game, and it's not even close. The only crowd that I even put in the same league is FIFA, but not because necessarily of the individual behavior of the people that you see, but because of how they react so wonderfully to things that happen. But I love the crowd, but not just the crowd. The fact that on opening day the park is jammed, but on that third game of the series that's on a midday, the upper deck is mostly empty and the lower decks are filled out, and then by like the 8th inning of a game that's got a 5-run difference, a lot of the folks have left it. The ballparks feel alive. And when I say alive, I don't mean electric and on fire and everybody's into it. I just mean it feels like it's a real baseball game, a real Major League Baseball crowd. And I love that. Owen?
If I can jump in, as a pitcher, they're also a lot less distracting. In last year's game, you'd see people walking up and down the aisles all the damn time behind home plate.
Yeah.
Don't see that as much this year. Again, minor thing, but it goes to what Rich was saying. The crowd actually looks and behaves naturally.
Yep, I absolutely love the crowd, and not just the crowd, like I said, but also the crowd based upon what kind of game it is and what time of the day it is and what's going on in the game. It's fantastic stuff. Subtle, but to me, as a guy who has forever wanted to know, why is the stadium full with 10 seconds left in a game where it's 38-10? Why is that? No more. Love that. All right, so thank you very much, Owen Good from Polygon, Sumit Sarkar from Polygon, Brian Weedoff from Pasta Padre. This has been a lot of fun. Again, this will be packaged with yesterday's Hangout as part of this week's Press Row podcast, and then on next week we will have a full review roundtable with most of our favorites, except for Mr. Brian Weedoff, who's decided to go on vacation. How dare you, sir?
I don't have true vacations because I still work no matter wherever I am.
Right.
But yeah, I will be spending most of my time in the sports book in Las Vegas for the Final Four and the opening of the baseball season. So you'll follow me on Twitter for my latest bets.
Good stuff. All right, so thank you, gentlemen. This has been a lot of fun. I look forward to going even deeper into all these different modes. Clearly, all of us are playing very different things, which I think makes for some really great discussions. So, for Brian Weedoff from Pasta Padre, Owen Good from Polygon, Sumit Sarkar from Polygon, I'm Rich Grisham. Thank you, everybody, for watching and for listening, and we will see you again really soon.